So when we talk about export readiness, it does not apply only to having the right products, yeah? But as you may have guessed, you need to have the right products, you need to have the right market, yes? And you need to have the right information about where you are taking. One of the main problems that we face as SMEs in Uganda lies in something called consistency. Yes? Consistency both in quality and in quantity. And I'm sure some of you have not taken up certain contracts where you could have qualified, but the numbers they may be asking for in that contract, you see that sometimes they are going to strain the systems that you have already put in place. Yeah? So today we are going to have a conversation about what it means to be export ready. So export readiness, we are looking at being able to supply the right products in the right quantity and quality to a chosen market. Yes? Now this will serve you on the point when you come, when it comes from a legal standpoint. Yeah? And when you enter into a certain market, how do you reliably ensure that once you enter a certain market, you do not take steps backwards? Yes? That once you break into the EU, you build systems like she was explaining about sustainability. You build a system that allows you that even if you're not around, yeah, a product that is leaving your factory floor can still go into that market and still be received as a conformant product. So it's not just about having a product. So buyers abroad have specific requirements that you must meet. Secondly, it is the readiness of the whole business. As I'm going to show you, it's about readiness of the whole business. Because you may have a very good product, but at the point where you're taking to a certain country or you're dealing with a certain entity, the department for documentation fails you. You understand? Yeah? You do not have maybe a certain certificate. Maybe you got the certificate, it was sent via email, but at the point where they told you send this certificate, the gentleman's email is full. Yeah? And he cannot access his what? His mail. It looks something simple, but in a case where you're on high pressure, it's going to cost you a lot. You understand? So it's about understanding your whole business, from your products to your production capacity to your paperwork and to your understanding of the market. Now, in a more converged sense of some of the conversations we've had in the morning, like she said, as an enterprise, there is only so much you can do. Yes? But also, how do you communicate the quality that you have strived to put in place in your company? Yes? That also matters. Because you may be doing the right thing, but the market is not reading what you are doing. So we are also going to see how you can communicate quality to the market. Then, getting ready costs time and discipline, not necessarily big money. Much of it is organizing what you are already doing. This was a consistent theme when we were going through for the SMEs where we did the gap assessment. Most of the things, most of the SMEs were already doing, but they were not documented. You understand? And because these things are not documented, you find that there is no consistency in implementation. You understand? And some of these things, they look very simple, especially depending on our, for example, in a Ugandan context, we are not a country traditionally that is so heavy on documentation. Yeah? But if you look at all things that have persisted through time, when you look back, you see that at the back of any system that has persisted through time, behind it there is documentation. Yeah? So whether to pick an example from religion, all the religions that have persisted through time have a book where they write things that then become the dogma of those religions. Yeah? Systems, a constitution, a country. Yeah? But it is only the entrepreneurs who think that for them, their systems are going to work out without what? Documentations. Yeah? And in most cases, I'm not telling you to bring on new things. It's usually the things are in your head. If your worker calls you, you know what to do. But it is not written where? at your company. Now some of you are here, but you're the one who has the policy and the procedure in your head. So you're going to receive calls, obviously, because you've left them. As you're coming here, you told them maybe the moisture content we buy is this. Someone is going to come with a different moisture content, and they'll have to call you. As much as you tell them this is the moisture content we want, they'll be like, this one is off by only 1 percentage point. You understand? And then in your head, there is a procedure you go through that is not written. Then you will gauge and be like, okay, reduce the price, let him what? Give us. You understand? That is also what we want to work on. So this session is giving you a map through all the 3 themes that we have been doing from the beginning and what we shall touch until day 3. You've gone through food safety, hazard analysis and critical control points. And then on the 3rd, we are going to touch something called lean sessions. So these are the 4 pillars of export readiness. Product. And under product, we are going to look at what we call the HS code. Yeah? Which is the identification code that you use when you are taking your product onto the market. And I'm going to go deeper into that in my next session. Then the market. A chosen destination where demand, prices, and access conditions actually favor your product, not just the nearest border. Yes? This is our 2nd pillar, the market. Product, market. 3rd one is compliance. After choosing the market, you need to look at what is needed in that market that you need to comply to. Yes? Who is the regulating body that you need to comply to? What are the standards? What are the certificates that you're supposed to be with when you're going into that market? This element of compliance informs us on the session, on the conversation some of you were having about, it's not just about chasing certain certifications blindly. Yes? First realize, where do you want to take your products? You understand? And then I'm also going to touch, how do you choose the right market that you want to go to before you come to this. So some of you actually, you can go already into exports, as I think some of you have already done, with maybe a UNBS certificate and the SPS. And for the stage you are at, that is okay. But then when you're going to a bigger market, then they may ask you for another certification. But you need to be, you don't need to do these things reactively. After getting the contract is now when you're chasing the what? The certification. So the last one is capacity. The people that you have in your enterprise, can they support what you're putting in place? So the people, because the people are the ones who are doing the records, they are doing the costing, they're the ones managing the cash flow to fulfill the order, which you now have to do the shipping on time. Yeah, that is if you're doing something like a contract, and do it again the next season. This comes from building systems that are able to do the same thing over and over correctly. So these are the 4 pillars of export readiness: product, market, compliance, and capacity. Now, let's start with the HS code. Now, the HS code, the acronym HS in full stands for Harmonized System. Yeah? Now, in international markets, Harmonized System is sort of an identity. Think of it as an identification mark or card for your product as you take it onto the market. Why do we have a harmonized system? Because international market involves different cultures, different countries, different languages. Yes? What you call cassava in Acholi may not be what they call cassava in the French dialect. You understand? It may not be what they call cassava in Kenya. What do you call cassava in Kenya? The one from the ground. Which one?
Oh, in my...
Yes, Kikuyu language. Okay, let me use another example that's much easier. Let's let's look at something like coffee. Yeah, coffee in Uganda they will call it emwanyi. Yeah, in French they will call it cafe. In Ethiopia, which is one of the biggest producers, they will call it buna. Yeah, in Kiswahili I think they will call it kawa. You understand? We need to find a way that when all these people from the different cultures come onto the market, when we say a certain code, yes, they all understand that you're talking about coffee. You understand? So the HS system was developed to combat that specific reason primarily. Yeah. Now, of course, there are other reasons whereby it was developed to do taxation, to manage the taxation records. But for this cause primarily, this is what I want you to learn. You need to learn the HS code of your product. Because as you're doing the export, this is what identifies your what? Your product. So, the HS code, in other contexts, you'll find that the HS code is defined. So this is HS code. It will be written as HSO 6. Yes? So, we have about the first 2 letters, then another 2 letters, then another two figures or numbers. 2 to make them 6. Yes? So, the first 2 numbers that you see in any HS code, like those you're seeing on the screen, they stand for the, what we call the chapter. Now, in developing the HS code, they wanted to first aggregate products that either do a similar function, yeah, or products that are subsidiary, but products that are related to each other. Yes? For example, coffee is in the same chapter with spices, it's in the same chapter with tea, it's in the same chapter with what they call mate. Yes? But sometimes products that already have big trade volumes are put alone in their own chapter. Yes? For example, cocoa is in its own chapter. Yeah? So the first 2. Now, the reason why I'm taking you through the HS code is because I'm going to introduce you to a system that helps you look for your HS code. Yeah? And the numbers we are using are this code that you're going to put in the system. Right? So, we have the chapter. Then, the middle 2 figures or numericals are defined as the heading. Yeah? Now, the whole idea of how the HS code is developed is that it is a top-down structure. We move from the broadest as we zero down to the specific product that we are looking for. The next time I say, and because of that, and you don't clap, I will see the specific individual. And the specific individual who doesn't clap, I have a tongue twister for you. Yes? And my tongue twisters are dangerous, so you better clap. Yes? And because of that, I've seen someone. I'm preparing the hardest. So, gentlemen, by the time you came in the afternoon session, we are touching something that we have defined as export readiness. How do you get export ready as a company? So, we've been looking at the 4 pillars of export readiness. The first one was product, the second one was market, the third one was compliance, and the fourth one was capacity. These are the 4 pillars of export readiness. So, by the time you joined us, I was introducing the audience to a concept known as the Harmonized System. Yes? And the Harmonized System is a system that is used to identify your product. Because of the different cultures we come in, different products are called different names in different languages and different countries. Yeah? So when we meet on the international market, we need to have a code that when we say that code, all of us understand the product we are talking about. You understand? But these product categories are too broad. You understand? So when they were now beginning to zero down on the harmonized system, ideally what they did, they moved from the broad categories and they tried to zero down to the specific category. For example, if your friend called you and asked you, where are you? And you say, I'm in Uganda. You understand? You're not lying, but what do you mean? You understand? So the idea is the same thing here. You say, I'm in Uganda, but in Uganda, where are you? Yes? I'm in northern Uganda. In northern Uganda, where are you? I'm in Gulu. You understand? Then when you go on, there are some other numbers you can add here, but for now, let's first go with those three. Yeah? So what they did was, in that same context, the chapter is the broad category. You understand? And I'm going to give you an example practically. The chapter is the broad category. For example, you find that coffee, like I told you, coffee, tea, spices, and matcha, because they almost serve the same function, they are all put in the same category. Yeah? They are products that look alike. You understand? But then there are chapters that have only one product. Only the products that have very big trade volumes. You understand? On the world market. For example, if you look at a product like cocoa, it has its own, and these chapters are over 99 chapters. Now, you don't need to cram 99 chapters. I'm taking you through this so that you know the HS code for your product. You understand? Now, every time we are doing this session, I always tell people, I know there are people who are doing exports in a fashion that is not structured. You understand? You have your friend who's going to Germany and they have extra space in their luggage, and you give them some, and you say, I am a what? An exporter. You understand? When they call exporters, you push your house and you stand in front. You understand? But now when you're going to do big volumes of export, you cannot keep doing the traditional way. You understand? So the reason why we are taking you through this, why I'm laboring to do all this, is so that you're able to build a system. When they tell you, when you're going to do pitching and they tell you do an investment strategy before you present to us, where do you get the numbers? You understand? Do you just Google? Then the number that comes from Google is what you use. Yeah? So this is why we are going through this. So the first thing it is the chapter, then we zero down, we go to what we call the heading, then we zero down, we go to what we call the sub heading. Yeah? First to other chapter, the second to other heading, then the next one is the sub heading. Yes? Now, here's the thing. Every once in a while, when you're doing export with those big countries, or countries that are beyond maybe the East African community, but it can happen even in the East African community, if your product is quoted with the wrong HS code, yes, it affects you in a way that sometimes, like I told you, beyond identifying your product, it's the primary reason why we need the HS code. But countries also develop specific HS codes so that they are able to tax or not to tax certain products. You understand? For example, if we have cancer machines in Uganda and they are being flown to India for servicing, yes, those are not exports, but they are going to pass through the customs. You understand? So for government machines that are going to be taken for servicing, they will be given a certain HS code that when it reaches the customs, they know this is not taxable. If you're importing, and we have maybe, for example, we had the pandemic, yeah? People who were importing things that were specifically going to be used to make, maybe, if you're importing maybe something like sanitizer or anything related to that, the government will put a certain HS code so that they either lower the tariff you pay or they increase it. You understand? Depending on the product you are bringing. Here's an example. Uganda, as the lady behind told us, we have the premium shea butter. You understand? Now, Here's another person from West Africa who, because they have money and all the systems support them, maybe in their country, they are now starting to import shea butter into Uganda. But we already have ours. You understand? The government of Uganda, at customs, that butter from West Africa will have a specific HS code. Yeah? So that at customs, when they see it, they know this butter is from this and this place. This is not our butter. We charge it a higher, what you may call tax in layman's terms. You understand? So that we discourage them from bringing more butter into the country, because we already what? Have butter. Do you understand? So if your product is usually quoted with the wrong HS code, what happens is it can go two ways. You may fall into the category where you're paying a lower tariff. You understand? Now, you may get away with it for like 3 or 4 months or 1 year. You understand? But if the tax authorities trace back, they can still send you an injunction and tell you to pay what you have been, because they'll say you've been under what? Declared. You understand? And you'll be fined. Then, if it goes on the other side, they may put you in a higher bracket where you're going to pay a higher what? A higher tariff to whichever country you are taking. You understand? So you have to know the right HS code, even you as an entrepreneur, because when that mistake happens, trust me, you're going to be affected. You understand? Because you've read a certain survey of a certain organization and they tell you there's an untapped market where? In a certain place. For you hurry up, you get a loan from Shea Butter Alliance, they give you some 200 million, you go and export, and you know what? By the time you reach the border, you don't have the qualifications to take that side. You understand? Then from there on, we realize why it was an untapped what? Market. Do you get it? Anyways, so this is the HS code, HSO6. Now, some of these things we are going to simmer into you as we practice. You understand? Now, these are the HS codes for the value chains we are dealing with today. For shea butter or shea nuts, the raw ones, so you can see this table. For shea nuts, they fall under this category 120799. Yeah, 6 digits. Then the oil, you see that the oil is a different HS code from the nut. Do you understand? Yeah. So for the oil, for it falls in 15. So you will find that when you check this chapter of 12, you will find all the oil seeds. Yeah. All the oil seeds will be in chapter 12. But if you do substantial processing, the product can change its what? Its HS code to now, for example, in the case for shea, it is 15. Now, if you're exporting, let's say, shea butter, and in your documentation you are using this, you're going to face a penalty in the country where, because this HS code is not for Uganda, it's for the whole world. You understand? All customs authorities know shea butter as this 151590. Anywhere you take any custom authority, that's what they know. So where it affects you is that in some countries, as I'm going to show you, some countries, because of their business culture, yeah, they, in Uganda, you know, you may want to write, let's say, letter, you may want to write maybe like 9, yeah, and by mistake, this thing, that thingy, you do it too much and it goes to something like 8, and it can be read like 8. There are certain countries, for example, in the Nordic region, that they are very pragmatic. You understand? They are very intentional on what they do. So you will not say it was a mistake. You understand? You're under declaring. Why are you under declaring? You want to pay less what? Less tariffs or less taxes. You understand? So it will affect you. So you've left your shipment. You've taken 200 million from Shea Nut Alliance. You know once that payment is made. You understand? You know once that payment is made, you can ask for the price of a Mercedes-Benz DLE. You've left poverty. You even want to shift away from our region. You understand? All of a sudden you want to go to where? To Buziga in Kampala. You understand? Then They'll send you an email or they'll give you a call and they tell you, you know what, your goods have reached here, but in the phytosanitary certificate, we have found a certain organism that is not accepted in our country. And you know what happens at that point? You either have to pay your own money and bring back your goods, or they are banned the other side where you've sent them. You understand? And now, why I'm telling you this, like in the beginning when I told you, you may survive for the first 3 years doing that kind of export that is informal. You understand? But what kills an SME is that you're moving on limited time. You understand? The money you're operating on more often is not yours. You understand? The farmers who have given you their things are trusting you because you speak English. So if they say, for us, we don't want to know, when are you paying? You say 2050. They say, okay, you take it. You understand? Now you execute this. Now they call you. Yeah? And maybe on that fateful day, you were in a room like this, studying about something different. You receive the email or the call. Yeah? You step outside. By the time you come back, every time you say, and because of that, you are like, you understand? Yeah? That is when you hear people say in Uganda that the business has tried itself in me. You understand? Business ekozechi enegezezamu. You understand? And people will be wondering, that man is growing thin. He does export every month, but he never has money. You are paying the debts you started the business with. Far be it from you, maybe the whole business has what? Collapsed. Because of that one contract you what? You got. After struggling down this side,